Well, hey, welcome to the Real College Life Podcast. My name is Ryan Nadel. I'm the crew team leader here in central Wisconsin in the great UWSP, Stevens Point, Wisconsin. We're getting ready to launch an amazing year of ministry on campus. And I have three friends who are with me today to talk more about what it's like to be college students, what people are talking about on campus, and also to partake in a delicious Capri Sun. So I don't know if there's anything better than just the experience of pressing a straw into a foil package of liquid. So we're going hard.
Capri Sun ASMR.
I love it. Labels up.
How many times have you, like, as a child maybe, like, squirted Capri Sun on yourself? Do you have any, like, good memories?
Oh, I think the big debate is, are you a squeezer or do you get it flat?
Yeah, I'm definitely not a squeeze. I don't like squeezing. I've had too many experiences with children where they're like,
out the straw.
And it all.
and it's like, you give one of these to a 3-year-old and the physics are just way beyond them. They're just like, no way they're understanding. Anyways, you guys should introduce yourselves. So, Garrett, why don't we start over on your end?
Sweet. Yeah, my name's Garrett. I'm going into my senior year here at UWSP, and I'm studying health science and wellness.
Yeah.
Very nice.
I'm Joel. I'm also going in my senior year, and I'm studying urban and community forestry.
All right.
And I'm Michaela. I'm also going to be a senior this year, and I am studying interior architecture.
Man, together we could have a great community.
We
know,
could.
Wow.
We could have medicine and trees and very nice interior buildings.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kayla, what's your favorite color as an interior architect?
Blue.
Blue.
Mm-hmm.
Like that, like Garrett t-shirt blue?
No, like the
Dang.
darker blue on the sign.
The darker blue of the crew neon sign.
The Capri Sun blue.
Capri.
Oh.
Capri
Sun.
Capri Sun. It's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys have any great experiences this summer that you'd like to share with the podcast viewers?
I got as far away from Stevens Point as I could possibly get.
Really?
Yeah, with crew, actually.
What?
Yeah.
It's insane.
I don't know if you knew this, Ryan, but I actually went to Australia
No.
on a mission trip. Yeah.
It's shocking.
Yeah. So we had a bunch of fun experiences there. I got to hold a koala.
Let's
Okay.
go.
Can't do that in Stevens Point.
No, you can't.
And talk to people from all over the world. So that was super cool.
That's amazing. That is a great experience. We'll have to do a podcast episode about that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, Joel, Michaela, did you guys?
I caught a fish.
Okay.
Like every day.
Every
for
day.
2.5 months.
No, it's terrible.
Or no, wait. That's not good math. Sorry.
It was this big.
For like 5 weeks.
Man, that's awesome.
Yeah.
What a great summer. Michaela, did you catch a fish every day?
No, I
She
caught
broke
a
my
few
streak.
though.
Really?
I did, but we're not going to talk about that. But I did catch a few. But I had an internship this summer, so I got to design people's houses.
Hey, that's
Whoa.
cool. Like for reals.
For real, not just a fake project.
Dang.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That is amazing. Well, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
Go summer. Well, summer's coming to a close, and we are starting back up with ministry stuff. And yeah, this episode is going to be titled More Important Than a College Degree. We're going to talk about what could be more important than a college degree, if anything. And I'd like to start off this episode with one of my favorite Teddy Roosevelt quotes, where he said, "A thorough knowledge of the Bible is more important than a college degree," or a college education, I think is how the quote went. And I've used that in talks over the years on campus. And it's kind of like provocative, I think, in the sense that when we talk about the idea of biblical literacy, or like the ability to understand the Bible, like people that study that stuff are telling us that there's just way less biblical literacy. Like people can read, sure, but they don't really understand what the Bible's all about.
Yeah.
And so when we hear a quote like that from Teddy Roosevelt from 100 years ago, it's like, well, what does that even mean? How does that even apply to our modern society, our modern culture? Meanwhile, though, there is this like a lot of debate on the like in different realms of thinking about like what's a college degree useful for, Is it purpose filled, et cetera, et cetera? And so I guess for just kind of a starter question, how do you guys view the value of a college degree, and then when you contrast it with like other things that could be more important in the world? Like, do you think a college degree is the most important thing that you can get, or do you feel like there's other things going on out there?
Yeah. I think coming to UWSP, especially as like a NRES major, Point has like one of the best. I meet people from all over in the natural resources world who are really good at their job and they graduated from Point. But I feel like I've learned more about how to live on my own, how to interact with people, just like adult skills through
Yeah.
coming to college.
Yeah.
That I don't think I matured anymore from like high school, in my freshman, sophomore year, but like the people skills I gained were like astronomical compared to high school.
Yeah. It's a good thought.
Yeah, I'll jump on that train for sure too. Like the piece of paper is one thing. I think like our culture for sure too is like moving towards like experience is very valuable, and so like if you go through college and don't like get a job, don't get an internship, like it's not gonna get you very far. Like obviously it'll help, but it's not gonna get you very far. But those people skills, especially for me, like coming into my freshman year, just learning how to deal with like social anxiety, learning how to be the one to like initiate conversations with people even when it's kind of scary. Like those were huge skills for me, and I think will like pay big dividends in the future.
Wow. Michaela, you got to take.
Yeah, I also agree with what they're saying, but I also think it really helps you learn how to meet other people well, because you're on your own, so you have to figure out, okay, who do I want to associate with? Like, what do I want to spend my time doing? And like, who is it with? And so you learn pretty quickly, like, okay, my parents aren't here, and like, okay, what do I need to do now? Who are my friends, and like, are they gonna last outside of college? Do I want these people in my life forever, kind of thing?
Yeah, I remember years ago, the first time I think I heard somebody talk about like, hey, college degrees aren't worth it anymore, they're not really paying out. I went and talked to a friend of mine who was like a VP of a really large company, and I was just like, what do you think? You think it's still worth it to get a college degree? And, as somebody, he was in human resources, he was over the whole company. And I was like, as someone who works in human resources, and he said, Ryan, regardless of the degree, when somebody shows up with like a 4-year degree, it shows that they had like life experiences and were, ambitious enough to go and pursue that degree. And then also just even like dorm life has its own kind of like value to it intrinsically. So there are things about any kind of 4-year degree that obviously I think pay out, just the life experiences you guys are talking about. And then obviously there are degrees that are not going to necessarily, you can spend a lot of money on a degree that will not pay out. And I think it's wise to think about that and think about why you're getting the degree that you're getting. But really the heart of this podcast is more about how spiritual life, and particularly the gospel, is more valuable than a college degree, and kind of that idea that not just reading the Bible, but specifically understanding who Jesus is in the Bible is more important than a college degree. And I guess I'd just be curious to hear, how have you guys experienced your spiritual life to be the ultimate thing kind of worth living for in your life as you've been in college?
It's a big question.
Yeah. Especially without prep, but yeah, I think just from the opportunities I've had and the things I've been able to say yes to since becoming a Christian, or like actually taking my faith seriously, is like the coolest thing. It's so interesting to be on like the roller coaster of following Jesus, and like being like, okay, God, close that door, something my mom would pray, which I think is like super cool, from Revelations, and she says like, close the door, no man can open, and open the door, no man can
That's
close.
good.
And I've just seen that in my life where it's like, there's no way I could like finagle this to work, you know?
Mhm.
Right.
Or like, I look at things and it's like, that's God's hand over everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, coming to Point was definitely one of those moments. Like freshman year, me and Garrett were on the same dorm floor, so it's funny you bring up dorm life, but we weren't the best influences for each other.
No.
But then I had the opportunity to go to Alaska on summer mission with crew, and when I came back in the fall, I was like, I thought I was a totally different person.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know, it's just cool to be able to say yes to things and see like chain reactions from that.
Yeah. It's awesome. I don't, I tell people this, but I'm like, I can't picture a life of like complete autonomy without God.
Mm-hmm.
Just because like, I don't know how long you have to live before you go like, this person got it all in life and their life completely fell apart.
Right.
And this person had it all and their life completely fell apart. And I'm just like, man, I think that's what like the scriptures refer to as the fear of God, where we like either are going to look at our life and go, I'm in control, I know the way, and I don't need to let God lead me, or we're going to look at our life and be like, oh man, I need God to lead me. And that like dependency that you're talking about, that creates, that dependency that we have to like really fall into God over and over again every day. And it definitely doesn't mean that God like makes all our problems evaporate or that life isn't hard or whatever. In fact, I think life gets harder sometimes as we follow God.
Mm-hmm.
But it means that he is there, he's guiding, he's directing, and we have him to fall into and to walk with through it. I don't know. Garrett, Michaela, you got a thought?
Yeah, I think like going into college, my faith, I knew that I needed to choose something to do about it because I knew that I was on my own now and that my faith was now my own and I needed to decide what I wanted to do with it. And so I think having that choice of like being intentional about what I was doing and choosing to join crew and make sure I found community going to church and my friends that I was picking was huge because I knew that I didn't know what I was going to do without it and where I would have been without it either. I knew that I needed people in my life that would choose to direct me towards God because I couldn't have done it on my own. And I find a lot more peace and joy knowing that I have people in my life because before I did not have that.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was hard to choose to be like, okay, I see what all my friends are doing and how they're starting off their college experience and like what I'm choosing to do looks very different, but I would not have wanted to change that because I know that it would have been not the best option for me.
Yeah, we're just, I think, having a teenage daughter now, you think about life differently. And, when I was younger, we used to tell people, like, don't give in to peer pressure. I don't know if they ever, did you guys ever get that?
Heard that.
Yeah.
You heard that one?
Yeah.
They used that one on you too?
No way.
What? They're still using the
Especially
same old line.
in cops, the drug like education
Yeah, yeah.
class. Yeah,
Right.
that
What
was
was it
You
called?
Dare.
Cops?
Ours
Yeah,
was
Cops.
Dare.
You still had Dare,
Yeah, we
Joel?
had Dare.
Wow. Cops and Dare. Cops sounds a little more intense. I don't
Yeah.
know.
It scared me.
They're going to get you. It worked. It worked.
Mostly.
We don't need, we'll have to save that for another episode.
That'd be
But, I just think that, like, we have a piece of us that's wired up for peer pressure or peer influence or peer whatever. And obviously, I think a part of our faith life is always learning to go against the grain and learning to, like, stand out. But there's, when you find like-minded, faith-minded, faith-focused people, I was reading a book lately and by an old author named G.K. Chesterton, and he was talking about how, like, when you get around people who view life the same way and have, like, unity in that, it's arguably more important than just about any like luxury you could buy.
Mm.
That you could like, if you had the choice between like-minded people and hot water, like-minded people to do life with would be more valuable than hot water.
Mm.
And it's something that I think we don't think about enough. That, and as much as we have to learn how to stand out amongst a crowd or whatever it is, there's also this dynamic that we also need to find people who we can run alongside, who are going to encourage us to do the right thing, even when sometimes maybe we don't feel like doing the right thing, but are going to press into us to do the right thing. How valuable that is, like how important that is to our faith journey, to our faith walk. So, yeah, I think that feeling of finding people who are going to help you walk in faith is a huge dynamic for sure. Yeah. Got a thought, Joel?
I always have a couple.
I know you do. That's why I asked.
I don't know. I feel like if you're going off, like you're going to college to get a job, at least that's why I'm going to college.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously there's so many other things that I've learned, like we've been saying. But also, I feel like I know a lot of people who are very intimate with their faith in Jesus and are super successful monetarily. And it could be like they're being blessed for their devotion, but I don't really think so. I think when you're a Christian and you're choosing no and you're disciplining yourself in like so many areas, like Michaela's saying her friends are having a party lifestyle for, welcome week, but she's deciding to go to Glow volleyball in bed by like 10:30. Like that's totally different than everybody else. That's like discipline. Like you wait till marriage with your spouse.
Yeah.
Like how much discipline does that take, right?
Yeah.
And so when you put that into the work world, it's noticed,
Well, and I don't know if this is what you're getting at, but like even financially, like if you extrapolate that into life.
Yeah.
I was watching who's the guy, Rich Dad Poor Dad. You ever Kiyosaki? He's this YouTuber guy, knows all this stuff about money, and he was like talking about just how rich people become poor essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, I have several friends right now who are going through divorces that are costing them millions of dollars. And, again, not that being a Christian is going to prevent you from ever having a divorce, but arguably, hopefully, like when two Christ-centered people come together, I mean, I would say having seen hundreds of couples come together on campus and staying in touch with them over the years, it's amazing how many they're beating the odds after 20 years.
Yeah.
And I can't guarantee it, and it's not something I can put in a test to, but, when two Christ-centered people come together, the chance of success is way higher. Like you're saying, when they're, living a lifestyle that's reflecting Jesus, the chances of them just avoiding millions of dollars of ugly divorce are higher. And again, it's not like a for sure always, but it exists there.
Yeah. A quote that I've been reflecting on this summer too. It says, knowledge does not create intimacy. It's discipline that creates devotion, which creates depth.
Oof.
And I think about that, in my quiet time, it's I remember just wanting to know so much so I could just regurgitate it to people. Mm-hmm. And then really slowing down and spending time in the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ and how that affects my life every day. And just reading through chapters of the Bible that are honestly kind of dull and doing it at 6:30 in the morning because I have class at 8. But that discipline translates in so many other areas of my life, but really creates a deep devotion with the Lord too.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Garrett, you got a take? You got something you're chewing on?
Yeah. So I think coming out of high school, at least what I was taught was you go to elementary school, middle school, high school, and then college, and then you can do whatever you want. And I think in that cycle, you get so focused on your college life, on especially colleges, it can be a lot. There's assignments, there's things to get done, and so you get so caught up in your daily life, and just since becoming a Christian, since really being devoted to my faith, I've noticed I much more often take a step back, take a step out of that, and realize like my purpose in doing that. In that I want to serve God, I want to glorify God. Like it's no longer like I want to get good grades because my parents want me to, because I want to look good. It's like I want to get good grades because like I know God. I know I'm supposed to do everything as if working for the Lord. So I'm going to do my homework as if I'm working for the Lord. When I'm at work, I'm doing it as if working for the Lord. And so it makes it much more easier to be motivated for things, because it's like, oh, like if I'm feeling unmotivated, who cares if I get good grades? But it's like I know that I'm doing this for the Lord, so it's like constantly keeping me moving.
Yeah, a cohesive, Christ-centered life is an inspiring life.
Mm-hmm.
We inspire others when we live out our faith, and we have inspiration by connecting with Jesus. And yeah, there's nothing I can find in the world that's going to do that.
Yeah.
And, all of the good causes, whatever they might be, without Christ at the end of them are insufficient. And so, yeah, I think as I've been, reading through and thinking through even just arguments for God, arguments for the existence of God, people will often point out, life has no existential meaning if God isn't there. And I would maybe even go so far as to say our college careers, our degrees, whatever it is that we're doing, apart from God, how do you guys think people find meaning, or what is the meaning apart from God in a degree in life without having a Christ-centered worldview?
I think a lot of it is like money.
Sure.
I know like a lot of people I talk to, I work as a phlebotomist, so I get to talk to like 30 people a day for like 5 minutes. And like a lot of people I talk to do their careers for money. Like they're like, it pays the bills, and that's
Right.
what I do. I'm sure like students who are able to get a college degree as well would probably tell you like they're passionate about what they're going to do as well. But it's definitely like putting food on the table, and also like people want to like what they do.
Yeah. They want to find some sort of pleasure or
some sort of fulfillment through their work.
Yeah. It's interesting.
Yeah, I feel like I got a good example of that this summer with my internship, is like seeing how some people are like, okay, I'm going to put all my time into this project because there's certain things we have to meet, and they're working like 12 hours a day on things. And other people are like, okay, I've hit my 8 hours today, like I'm going to leave for the day and be done and like move on. And there's people that like their whole life is just dedicated to doing this, and other people are, okay, I enjoy doing this and I'm glad that I make money doing it, but I'm going to step away from it and choose to do other things. And so I think that was a huge thing, getting to see that was like how some people do view it and the amount of work that they put into it, and they're really good at it, and so obviously they get paid well, but how tired or stressed or anxious they are because they're choosing to spend their entire day focused on this is insane.
Yes.
And it's like, okay. And then I come in as an intern and they're like, whoa, okay, you're like really happy to be here and enjoying what you're doing. And it's like, well, I'm not choosing to do all of that. But like,
Right.
Also, how am I reflecting Jesus in what I'm doing and talking to others, and my work that I'm doing, like Garrett said, how I'm working in the little bit of time that I'm there, because I'm only there for the summer.
And that balance, the balanced life of, following Christ, hopefully has a reflection of like, this isn't my whole life, but also is like what I'm doing, like you're saying, Garrett. And that's it's a hard balance for Christians to figure out, but it's significant that we fight that we're engaged with that and recognizing the tensions of some of that. Well, that's an interesting thought, Michaela. I think that all of us are guilty of probably in different ways spending time on things that don't have like the purpose that we want it to have. And I think that when I look at reading the Bible and when I look at what God wants for our lives, I think that God does want everything that we do to be purpose-filled, and God wants our lives to be more than like what we're saying, like more than a degree, more than working. He wants our lives to be fully centered on who he is, and he wants everything that we do in this life to reflect really, like, I think, kind of an eternal perspective or an eternal reality that that there's something more beyond this life. I'm curious how you guys, I don't know, have you heard of that phrase, eternal perspective, before?
Mm-hmm.
How do you hear that? Like, when you hear that, what do you hear being talked about, or how does that motivate you? Is it that concept inspiring? Is it confusing? Is it cloudy?
Yeah, I think it goes back to kind of like what Garrett was saying, at least for me, about doing everything to the glory of God. I don't know. There's so many assignments, especially my first 2 years of college, that are like, all right, English 101, English 102.
Why are you picking on English classes?
Okay, I'm sorry.
I'm just kidding.
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Because I didn't take any math classes here. But it's just like, I'm not going to use this again. Like,
Right.
I'm a tree major, you know? Like,
Totally.
And so having the thought of like, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it well because it honors my Father in heaven. Is kind of like where I go with that eternal perspective.
Yeah. How about you, Garrett?
Yeah, I think of like the analogy of like a long rope, and like you put a little dot on it, and then like
Boom.
boom. This life is like, you know, our life is that little
Did you
dot.
make this up?
I just dreamt
The
that
dot
up.
get bigger? Or?
No. No, that's what I think of when I hear the word
it's true.
eternal perspective. And it's really like, it's hard to understand like where we stand in our eternity right now. And everything feels like it matters so much right now. And so, like I was saying earlier, like taking a step back and realizing like I'm a child of God, my identity comes from Jesus and nothing other than that, really takes that weight off.
And that's like stable and constant forever,
Always.
for eternity.
Always,
Right.
yeah.
And that is, I mean, that's where I think an eternal perspective becomes so significant, is because our life is so dramatically different day to day.
Yeah.
You know, and I've heard that illustration obviously before, and I think about, you know, these brief and momentary troubles. I think it's what the New Testament calls it, like the things we go through, you know. And I've had the stomach flu a ton this year. I've had it like 4 times.
What?
I had the Giardia.
Oh, yeah.
This has been
We witnessed that.
Beaver
I mean, you
fever.
guys have, you've been around for a lot of this, the beaver fever. And when you're living in the beaver fever, like life feels like minutes just feel like they're years, you know, like this is taking forever. I feel so terrible waiting for the next wave of nausea to, anyways, I'll spare you the details, especially you, Michaela. But, you know, but then you look back on it and you're like, oh yeah, that was, you know, that wasn't so bad, or I hardly remember it or whatever. And it just goes by. And I think all of our struggles, all of our hardships in life are going to float away that way one day, even though right now they might feel like they're just so big and so difficult. And having an eternal perspective sets us in a place of focus to remember that that's how this feels, how this is all going to feel, like the line and the dot. It's a really good illustration.
Right.
Yeah. I was driving back up to Point today from home, and I listened to 2 Timothy on the way. Okay. Because that was like what we ran through in Alaska, and it's just like when I listen to that.
That book is fire.
Yeah, it's just so good. It's like it's fire podcast, fire book.
Yeah.
But yeah. So just like listening through 2 Timothy chapter 4, Paul's like, I charge you in the presence of God, like speak the word.
Yeah.
Reproof, exhort, and
encourage. Is that it? Yeah.
And I don't know. You just like look at Paul's life when he talks about like being poured out like a drink offering.
Right.
I've kept the faith. I finished the race.
Yeah.
Now in store for me is an eternal crown, right? But not just for him, but for all of us, is what he says.
Yeah.
And it's so cool to think of that. Like, we're going to have an eternity with a guy like Paul, you know? And it's like the struggles that he went through, and he's like, man, it's over. Yeah. But like, I don't know, he would probably do it all over again if he had to.
The peer pressure in heaven, the people will be around.
Yeah. Right.
You know, and I mean, I think we've talked about this a lot in different ways over the years, but and certainly within the realm of crew, we've talked about this a ton. But you know, there's probably going to be moments where we're like, man, when I'm sitting next to this guy who got his head lopped off for the gospel, or you know, whatever, in heaven, in eternity, when we're like next to these saints who really went all in, you know, hopefully now we can look at that and go, man, that should make me want to go all into whatever Jesus is calling me to do.
Yeah.
And you know, living in light of eternity is that reality that we're going to stand next to some of these people who really gave it their all for the gospel, and I want to give it my all for the gospel. And hopefully that means for college students to finish your 4 years on campus, as the Lord leads, obviously, and people take different directions for good reasons. But I think even more than that, I mean, the reason I stay on campus working with college students is simply because there are just so many opportunities to make an impact in another person's life on the college campus. And I would just hate if, you know, a Christian student out there who, you know, is floating by in college just doesn't see those opportunities around them. Because you're in such amazing proximity with other people, and so many people are really looking for some of the big picture questions in life. And that's why I think your faith life is more important for you, but it also could be more important. I mean, Joel, I think about how you impacted Garrett's life. And I am willing to bet 20 or 30 years from now, Joel, you'll probably think back and be like, man, that was one of the best investments I ever made in my life.
Yeah.
I don't care how many fish I caught that year. I don't care what my boat looked like. I don't care about it. That thing is going to last, you know, and you guys are all impacting other people's lives along the way. And you know that like that's going to go on to other people. Yeah. And it's like that even, and I've had to think about this a lot, but even the chance that might happen.
Right.
Yeah.
Even like if it doesn't happen, but it's like it could happen. Because obviously, like when we give our lives to God and we ask Him to use them, use our lives for something, there's no guarantees. But even if there was like a 1 in a million chance that something might happen this year, I'd want to be all in on that. Because it's just, you're talking about other people that are going to last forever in eternity. How do you invest in something more than that? I mean, I just keep coming back to this stuff. Like, this is so significant.
Right.
Well, anyways, thanks for joining us today. This has been a really delightful podcast. You guys have been amazing guests, and I'm sure we're going to see you back here a lot. So thanks for being a part of it. Thanks for checking out the podcast. I hope this has been inspiring to you to keep going in your faith, or maybe to start exploring faith for the first time. God bless, and hopefully see you in Central Wisconsin real soon, or somewhere else in the world. Blessings.
Bye.